So Israel has just begun Operation Gideon's Chariots 2, where they're currently focused on Gaza City. The stated goal is, as it has been, the elimination of Hamas and the return of the hostages. Meanwhile, Hamas just released a video a few days ago showing one of those hostages with a message that any further IDF operations will put their lives at risk. Now, Israeli Defense Minister Katz, speaking to this operation, just said, quote, "When the door is opened, it will not be closed, and IDF activity will intensify until the Hamas murderers and rapists accept Israel's conditions for ending the war, headed by the release of all hostages and disarmament, or they will be destroyed." Now, that's all been stated before. This is really just the most recent threat issued by the Israeli defense minister towards Hamas, and it comes following what appears to have been a Hamas offer of a ceasefire. But we'll dig into that here in a minute. On the surface, it sounds like Hamas was saying we're ready for peace, but if you dig into it just a little bit, you'll see that it's the same statements they've been making for a while now, not quite meeting the Israeli demands, to say the least. Now, as a part of this operation, we're seeing the IDF specifically go after a couple different high-rise complexes in Gaza City. We'll play some of that footage here, and no doubt this is the type of footage that is going to be making the news all around the world. They say in the coming days, the IDF will strike structures that have been converted into terrorist infrastructure in Gaza City: cameras, observation command centers, sniper and anti-tank firing positions, command and control compounds. And the IDF issued or released one of their graphics showing how some of these buildings had been turned into Hamas infrastructure. I'm always kind of torn on these graphics. I like them. I think it's easier to understand what it is you're looking at. But at the same time, we've seen Israel make the mistake, especially, the key example here is the Hamas facilities underneath the Shifa hospital, where Israel has shown some of these facilities that look a lot more complex in these illustrations than they do in reality, and it falsely sets expectations. But either way, this is the illustration released by Israel just earlier. They say in the coming days, the IDF will carry out precise targeted strikes against terrorist infrastructure that poses a direct threat to IDF troops. The IDF has now struck a high-rise building that was being used by Hamas in Gaza City. Within the building, Hamas established infrastructure that was used to advance and execute attacks against the IDF. They say Hamas terrorists installed intelligence-gathering equipment that positioned observation posts in the building in order to monitor the location of the IDF. As part of Hamas's preparations in this area, terrorists planted numerous explosive devices near the building intended to harm IDF troops. They say the Hamas also had multiple underground tunnels adjacent to the building. Israel stresses that prior to the strike, measures were taken to mitigate harm to civilians, including advance warning, the use of precision munitions, surveillance, and additional intelligence. Now, we have seen an increase just in the last year or so of Hamas really mining and setting booby traps on just about any building. And there's been countless videos released by Hamas showing them setting up these explosive charges or IEDs, improvised explosive devices, inside of buildings, overwatching them with some sort of camera or having somebody nearby to watch. And when the IDF goes in to clear that facility, the charge is detonated, either killing or wounding those in the direct vicinity of the blast, or in some cases, even bringing the entire building down on the IDF soldiers. So what the IDF is saying is that in some of these locations, in around these high-rise buildings, Hamas has also, in addition to using them to carry out attacks or plan attacks or surveil IDF forces, they've also set up explosive charges in and around the facility, threatening the IDF if they move in to clear the facility. Now, Al Jazeera, in coverage of this, said, quote, "The management of the Mushtata Tower has denied Israeli claims that the high-rise was being used by Hamas fighters. The building's management said the site was only accessible to displaced people." Al Jazeera's Tarek Abu Azum said a number of civilians were wounded in the Israeli attack on the 12-story tower and were transported to the Shifa hospital. Quote, "The shock of the attack spread over the entire area, triggering chaos. A number of makeshift tents have been affected by the attack, which signals a new phase of the Israeli military campaign." That was Al Jazeera's Tarek Abu Azum. Military analyst Elijah Maganer, my apologies on all of these pronunciations, told Al Jazeera that Israel is targeting high-rise buildings in Gaza to minimize its potential troop casualties when they advance on the ground, while also spreading, quote, "fear and panic among the civilian population." He said, quote, "It also has a psychological advantage. Destroying the skyline creates shock, disorientation, fear, and panic among civilians. who have no visibility of the future or when this war will end. This is a preparation to occupy Gaza City. And from everything that I've seen put out by Israel in recent days, weeks, and months, an occupation of Gaza City appears to be in the works. In fact, they just put out a statement a couple days ago saying that they have now begun phase 2 of Operation Gideon's Chariots, where they plan to expand and intensify operations in the coming days. They say Hamas will face the IDF in full power in Gaza City, where they will increase the pressure on Hamas until its decisive defeat. And we have seen an increase in reservists being called up across Israel to participate in this new maneuver or in this new operation. So it does look like, from what we're seeing, there will be a surge of Israeli forces into Gaza for Operation Gideon's Chariots too. Now, this comes amidst some announcements that there may have been some progress towards some sort of ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Bottom line up front, there is not going to be, not anytime soon. The BBC put out a statement saying, quote, or in their reporting, they issued a statement from Prime Minister Netanyahu's office that said, quote, "This is more spin by Hamas that is nothing new." The BBC said it insisted the war would end only after the 48 hostages, 20 of whom are still believed to be alive, were released. Hamas was disarmed, Gaza was demilitarized, Israel had security control, and an alternative civilian administration was established. Hamas reiterated its call for a deal that would see hostages exchanged for Palestinian prisoners, Israeli forces withdraw, border crossings reopen, and the start of reconstruction. So we are still seeing a mismatch of what the two sides view as a viable path forward for any sort of ceasefire. Israel is holding firm that Hamas has to be gone entirely, disbanded, with a new organization heading up Gaza, and they will demilitarize the Gaza Strip. So even after Hamas is out of power, Israel wants to make sure that there is no new group coming to power in Gaza that can carry out the September or the October 7th attacks anytime in the future. For Hamas's part, they want all IDF forces out of Gaza. You can see how those two aren't really lining up. So while we continue to see statements from Hamas that they are doing all they can to get to a ceasefire, that is a sticking point that neither side right now is budging on. Now, we did get, in the lead up to this operation, the elimination of Abu Ubaida last week, the chief spokesperson for Hamas. Now, it's not clear if that was a deliberate operation leading up to the onset of Operation Gideon's Chariots 2. My guess is when the window opens to go after any of these senior officials, Israel takes it, and they're not necessarily waiting. In this case, it is lining up relatively well that the top propagandist inside of Hamas was eliminated as Israeli forces move into Gaza City. We do have a couple additional details here where the IDF said last Tuesday they struck and eliminated the spokesman of the military wing and head of the propaganda apparatus of Hamas, Hudayfa Khalid, known as Abu Ubaida. In a document located in the Gaza Strip and now revealed, Khalid can be seen alongside the head of Hamas's military wing, Mohammed Daif, the commander of the Han Yunis Brigade, Raf Salameh, and the head of the intelligence staff of the military wing, Mohammed Odeh. Evidence of his senior standing in the organization's operational leadership. They say he was consistently hiding behind a mask, and he served as the face of the Hamas terrorist organization responsible for its propaganda and psychological war efforts. During the war, he orchestrated the dissemination of the horrors of the October 7th massacre through cameras he distributed to Hamas terrorists, as well as the release of videos showing IDF soldiers and civilians abducted in the Gaza Strip. And this is a pretty notable elimination. We're seeing a lot of pro-Hamas channels. Two things. First, a number of them are continuing to go with the fact that he's not dead. He's fine, alive, no problem at all. You'll hear from him soon. He's not been heard from since that announced elimination by the IDF. And then there's others, while not publicly acknowledging that he was killed, are putting out a lot of things celebrating all that he's done in his life. So this was certainly hit home to a lot of people on the side of Hamas in this conflict. Now, we do have what may have been the last publication from Abu Ubaida here before his elimination, a video released by Hamas this past week showing some of the hostages. And there's a couple key points here. I'm going to lean on the analysis from a couple different folks, starting with Abu Ali Express and then turning over to Tal Hagen. Abu Ali Express said, quote, and I'll show some of the pictures here, the military wing of Hamas published a psychological warfare video aimed at preventing the IDF's attack on Gaza City. In the video, which is claimed to have been filmed at the end of August, The main focus is on the hostage Guy Gilboa, who is filmed in a moving vehicle in Gaza City. It stops next to a Red Cross headquarters. Gilboa is filmed eating while riding in the car, perhaps in an attempt to minimize the damage from the video of a previous hostage that was shown clearly starving. Gilboa notes that in Gaza City there are more than 8 other hostages that are alive. I will note that at the date of the filming, this is Abu Ali Express. I will note at the date of the filming, as claimed by Gilboa, preceded the elimination of Abu Ubaida, the spokesperson of the Hamas military wing who is responsible for producing these videos. It is possible that this is his last production. It is evident that the text is dictated to Gilboa as he uses the Palestinian term prisoners to describe the hostages. And then a key note here from Tal Hagen, who Tal is going out independent, by the way. I'm going to link all of his work or his profile in the description below. Incredible analyst, does a really good job kind of sifting through mis and disinformation to lay out the facts of what we know at any given point. Worth a follow. Tal's doing some incredible work and excited to see where this takes him in the future. But Tal made a comment here that I thought was worth sharing, where he said, quote, Hamas attempts to blur the background when needed. They didn't hear at all. That is a pretty interesting thing to take apart. So he says they wanted this clip to be geolocated. They wanted this to be used as evidence that Hamas has hostages in Gaza City right now. He said this shows they can move freely despite observation by the IDF that the hostages are in Gaza City and that the IDF does not know where those hostages are and or doesn't have the ability to rescue them. So some of the concerns, no doubt, as we move into an increase in Israeli operations in Gaza City is twofold. Of course, we're going to have to keep an eye on civilian casualties, and anytime any military moves into an urban environment like this where there are a lot of displaced people, we have to hope that civilian casualties are kept to a minimum. We have seen Israel issue a lot of evacuation warnings for this particular area of the Gaza Strip. However, there's also reports coming in that Hamas is stopping people as they try to move south, forcing them to go back into Gaza City to essentially serve as human shields as the IDF pushes in. On top of that, we really have not seen a lot of evidence that the IDF right now has the ability to rescue these hostages through offensive military action. We have, was that one wild and crazy and daring operation where Israel was able to pull out 3 or 4 hostages, I believe. It was almost a year ago, if not longer. But that's been the only occurrence, to my knowledge. And that speaks to just the difficulty of carrying out that sort of hostage rescue type operation. And it's not getting any easier as Hamas is squeezed into a tighter and tighter corner. So we'll see if the IDF actually carries out, or Israel writ large tries to carry out any sort of those specific hostage rescue operations, or if the next few weeks here are really more focused at the continued dismantlement of Hamas as a military organization. But that's all we got for now. For those interested, we just stood up a Patreon program a couple days ago. We're doing our first AMA or Q&A here in a couple days. Looking forward to seeing what questions you throw my way. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, but it is one way, if interested and able, to support the work we're doing here. That link is in the description below. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.